Propose is an I, the jury, ticker-tape parade.
I don't understand.
Oh, well then let me spillane.
When severe weather hits, Channel 5 will warn you first with a Guardian Lightning Tracker. It's the latest forecasting technology from Channel 5's team of professional meteorologists. The Guardian, only on Channel 5. Channel 5's Pam Dale, keeping you in touch.
The overwhelming federal deficit. Everybody talks about it.
I am worried about these deficits and leaving these kids with a greater legacy of debt.
We cannot tax our way out of this deficit.
I didn't create it. Keep that in mind.
But if talk is cheap, the deficit is not. Tonight, a call to action from 6 U.S. senators fed up with just talk. A challenge to the candidates to offer solutions. A call to leadership.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Los Angeles, Ted Koppel.
You may be somewhat less than grateful for this exercise, but let's see if we can make the national debt understandable. Once we've done that, I'll be introducing 6 U.S. senators who'll be making a somewhat radical proposal on this broadcast tonight. You will see how the two items fit together in a minute or so. First, the debt. Back in 1981, when the national debt was still a shade under $1 trillion, President Reagan explained the sum this way. If you had a stack of $1,000 bills in your hand, only 4 inches high, you'd be a millionaire. $1 trillion would be a stack of $1,000 bills 67 miles high. That, of course, was back in 1981. These days, that stack of $1,000 bills would be not 67, but 180 miles high. Let's put it another way. Each of us, every man, woman, and child in the country owes $10,656. Interest, just the interest on our national debt last year was $196.3 billion. That, the interest, remember, is 119 times more than we spent on cancer research last year, 160 times more than we spent on AIDS research, over 1.5 times what we've spent on our entire system of interstate highways, and over 1.5 times more than we spent last year on federal benefits for the poor. It is, in other words, if not the biggest, then certainly one of the biggest problems confronting us as a nation. Which is why Senator John Danforth, a Republican from Missouri, contacted me a few weeks ago with a fascinating proposal. Senator Danforth and 5 of his colleagues are joining us from the Senate Armed Services hearing room. They are Democrats Sam Nunn of Georgia, Carl Levin of Michigan, and Bob Graham of Florida, and Republicans Hank Brown of Colorado and Pete Domenici of New Mexico. I'd like to begin with Senator Danforth, and if you could, Senator, because we're going to be a little short on time if we're going to get to all 6 of you, and we will, as briefly as possible and as succinctly and powerfully as you did when you called me on the phone, tell me what it is you're proposing and why.
The proposal is to let the American people resolve the question of the federal budget deficit, or at least have a chance to do it, by turning this coming presidential election into what amounts to a referendum on how to deal with the deficit. This cannot be done if the candidates are speaking in 20-second sound bites or in 30-second commercials. Candidates, particularly presidential candidates, will dance away from this issue just as they've been dancing away from the issue for the past 6 months or so. So the specific proposal that we have is that each of the presidential candidates go on television for 1-hour programs, not a debate format, separate programs for each of the 3 presidential candidates. That the subject of the program be the sole issue of the deficit, that it not jump around from one subject to another, and that each of the presidential candidates be questioned on the issue of the deficit, really relentlessly questioned, by the 2 members of the Senate who have served on the Budget Committee and who have announced that they are leaving the Senate because of frustration with the deficit. That is Senator Kent Conrad from North Dakota and Warren Rudman from New Hampshire.
Now, there is something quite extraordinary, and I would like to move on to Senator Nunn so that we begin to get a sense of the bipartisanship here. There is something quite extraordinary in the fact that 3 of you Democrats, 3 of you Republicans are prepared to make this challenge. And I ask you, Senator Nunn, I spoke earlier today with the man who now appears to be the candidate of the Democratic Party, Governor Clinton. I explained to him what you were going to be doing tonight and said, what's your answer going to be? He didn't hesitate for a moment. He said yes, he would be more than happy to make himself available for an hour of questioning like that. But then he turned it around and said, you know, there's something kind of amusing about hearing this sort of a challenge coming from Congress. You're clearly not amused, though.
No, I'd say Congress bears a great responsibility here. The difficulty is, Ted, just to give you an example, Senator Domenici and I and others proposed an amendment that would have brought about a balance by about the year 2000. We had two days of debate on it about 6 weeks ago. We ended up getting 28 votes and no attention from the public. And the bottom line was the people who were going to be, or felt they might be threatened by this amendment, knew about it, and the general public knew nothing about it. So only the president can capture the attention of the news media and make the explanation to the American public as to what the problem is. Once the American public understands the problem and understands that all of us have to tuck in our belts a little bit and be willing to sacrifice some, then I think the solutions will be forthcoming. Until then, the way this situation works here now, and particularly with the lack of media attention, and I'm thankful to you for reversing that tonight, the only people who know when you're really cutting programs are those who are going to be hurt by it.
Senator Domenici, let me ask you a question about what you think the president's reaction is going to be, because obviously an incumbent tends to be less inclined to risk-taking than the challenger does. Has anyone spoken to the president about this yet? And why, as a good loyal Republican, are you putting the president on the spot?
Well, frankly, I'm very hopeful that the president will say yes. The 2 senators that are going to ask questions and participate seem to me to add an aura of fairness to it and knowledgeability. And you need about an hour to get your points across because this is a very complicated subject. It's the most important single political subject as to the future of the United States that's on the horizon. There's no doubt about it.
By making this kind of challenge publicly, as you are doing it tonight, it sort of says, if you don't come and face it, you're going to have to pay the consequences. Now, as I've already indicated to Senator Nunn, Governor Clinton has already agreed to do this. I have a sense that Ross Perot will probably agree to it with some alacrity also. But again, what happens if the president says, no, I don't want to do it, or let's do it within the context of the debates?
Are you asking me? Well, I think he will suffer. I think he should accept this challenge. The only question I would have is a management question. This issue is so politically motivated and causes so much commotion in the country that probably there are some questions about making sure that it's fair in terms of sequencing. We have even had a rule around here that on the tough issues you have to get both Democrat, Republican, and the president to all say something at the same time, or the party gets blamed or the person gets blamed. So they'll have some questions about that. But let me tell you, we're going to urge that the president appear. He has a good budget director. He understands the issue, and he ought to present it to the American people in depth.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to take a break. When we come back, I'd like to begin with Senator Levin. What I'd like to ask you is whether you gentlemen in the Senate are prepared to show the same kind of political courage, that is, by saying, yes, we too are prepared to make difficult decisions and pay the political price for making those decisions. We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Allstate.
Right now, IBM is going beyond conventional computing by pioneering a way to touch millions of lives.
Raise, blow, you chatterer.
They love the hands-on stuff.
Information becomes something with imagination.
IBM Multimedia.
You can touch so many emotions with pictures and colors and sounds.
It's really wonderfully exciting.
Hi, it's code for 148 North St. Andrews. Power heard not seen. 81%. It is 14%. You two is the third
Of all the things around your house that need batteries, there's one thing that needs a good, fresh battery most of all. See your Allstate agent for a free home fire safety brochure. And please, check the battery in your smoke detector often.
If you're looking to buy the best-built pickup in America, think twice before you buy. Ford F-Series is the best-built pickup. Think about dependability. Ford F-Series is the most problem-free full-size pickup. Think about the competition. Ford F-Series has been the best-selling truck for 15 years in a row. And right now, save $2,000 on the F-150 Super Cab with air conditioning, chrome step bumper, and special wheels and tires. For the #1 pickup in America, see your local Ford dealer and prepare to be impressed.
It's us and them. You're sick and your surgeon may be lying to you about his record and experience. Chris Wallace reports on A Doctor's Report Card. Watch Primetime Thursday.
Joining us live once again from the Senate Armed Services hearing room, Senators Brown, Domenici, Danforth, Nunn, Levin, and Graham. I must tell you, Senator Levin, there is something rather imposing about seeing the six of you, three from each of the two parties, sitting there, joined at the hip on this extraordinarily important issue. But what is it that you as senators and perhaps others of your colleagues are prepared to do to demonstrate to the American public that it's not just talk again, but that you are also committed to taking hard action yourselves?
Well, I hope and pray that we would take that kind of action. There's no alternative to this but a program of shared sacrifice in which everyone contributes something to solving this problem. We owe it to our kids. My parents borrowed for me, Ted. They didn't borrow from me. And we have irresponsibly now borrowed $4 trillion from the future, and that's going to make it more difficult for our children and grandchildren to get an education or to buy a house or to buy a car. Now, the six of us have come together here tonight to make a proposal. We did this not knowing what the candidates of our own party would do or what Mr. Perot would do. We took that risk of deciding that on a bipartisan basis, we were going to lay down a challenge, even if that meant embarrassing the candidate of our own party, because we did not have any consultation with that candidate. The stakes are so high that that risk is worth it, and I believe that the Congress will respond. I agree with Senator Nunn that it's not just the executive branch and the administration that bears responsibility for these huge deficits, although their responsibility is heavy. The Congress also bears some responsibility.
Senator Levin, with all due respect, you didn't answer my question. What I asked you was, what hard choices are you gentlemen and other senators prepared to make beyond what I grant you is a difficult thing to do in running the risk of embarrassing the candidate of your own party?
I believe that most of us will be willing to put all of the items that we have to put on the table, including taxes, entitlements, discretionary spending, defense, all of the issues, I believe, have to be on that table and considered. We can't solve this with slogans, with easy solutions. It's going to take everybody contributing, and that means across the board that everybody's going to have to contribute a little. There's got to be shared sacrifice, but only a president can invoke that. Only a president can lead in that direction, and the president must have a mandate, and the election is the time to get that mandate.
Senator Brown, when we speak in general terms about things like taxes and entitlements, taxes is a little tough to talk about even in general terms, but when we talk in general terms about such matters, it's relatively safe. But particularly when you're talking about social programs, entitlements, it starts cutting pretty close to the bone when you start mentioning which programs are going to be cut and by how much. How much dedication is there, even among the six of you, to that goal?
Well, it's clear there's not enough dedication in Congress. That's why we've got this problem. We're turning this country into a third world nation. What you need in this debate are not generalities. What you need are specifics, exact programs you'll cut, programs you're willing to withhold. First of all, Congress could stay with the budget it passes. In 1990, that would have saved us nearly $100 billion. This last year, the deficit is $130 billion more than the very budget Congress passed. So first is to simply stay within the budget Congress passes. Secondly is to eliminate the duplication. We give $2.5 billion a year to Egypt, $3.5 billion to Israel. If we just pick a side, we'd save a couple $billion. The simple truth is we have subsidized tobacco, and we have a program to urge people not to use it. We give weapons to Greece to counter the weapons we gave to Turkey. The second thing we need to do is make some choices, some real choices, and proceed with them. And the third is go back through programs that don't work. To subsidize honey producers, for example, $60 million a year is ludicrous. And there are literally hundreds of programs like that. So the answer to this isn't generalities, but it's specifics that I think the candidates have to come up with, specifically itemizing where they'll save money. The Domenici amendment, for example, saved $92 billion over 5 years. It was rejected by the Senate, but it was really the only significant proposal that was even offered to the budget this year. So the rhetoric is a long way away from the reality, and the answer for the presidential candidates as well as Congress is to talk in specifics.
Senator Graham, over the past few years, any presidential candidate, at least in a great many national candidates like senators who have been incautious enough as to say publicly that they will call for higher taxes, have paid the price. Let me see if I understand you all correctly. You prepared to say that things are so bad that taxes need to be raised?
Yes, we're prepared to say that everything has to be available for consideration. The entitlement programs, which represent over 40% of the federal budget, domestic spending, defense spending, and additional taxes and revenue. When we're dealing with a budget deficit, as we will this year, of $400 billion, there are no easy solutions. There is no silver bullet. It's going to take all of those, and it's going to take a bipartisan spirit, Republicans, Democrats, the President, the Congress, and the American people being part of this and understanding and granting a mandate for action if we're going to make the difficult, shared sacrifice decisions.
Well, I think we ought to clarify that, though. I think in terms of taxes, we each should speak for ourselves. I'm going to be for new taxes, but not until we have found a method to guarantee that programs that are running wild are going to be controlled. And there are ways to do that, but we've never wanted to. So we got to take the things that are making this deficit go wild, and they're principally mandatory programs, Medicare, Medicaid, and the like. You got to fix them permanently, and if that doesn't get the budget solved, then you got to look for revenues.
You see, now you've given me the first queasy feeling in the pit of my stomach here, because what I'm beginning to hear is, you want to have taxes, you better start giving me the kind of cuts that I want to have in certain entitlement programs. That's the way that partisanship ultimately sinks any one of the best intentioned of these plans.
No, I don't think that any of the six of us would say we want to put taxes on the American people to solve the deficit that's created by the way we currently spend money. I don't think anybody's going to do that. If anybody says they are, let's hear them. You got to fix those first.
If I heard you, well, I'll tell you what, we've got to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'll be talking again with Senator Danforth and Senator Nunn, and that's precisely the point I'd like to raise with the both of you, and we'll also talk about what practically is going to be done in terms of making time available on television. We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
You to learn who, over 30 years ago, was the first car maker to build cars with seat belts, to make safety glass standard, the first U.S. car maker to offer anti-lock brakes, and who today offers more models with dual airbags than any other manufacturer. That company is Ford Motor Company.
We're committed to making safety innovation an important part of quality.
Ford Motor Company. Quality is job one. It's working.
Today, Tech Tread Shoe Corporation announced a major retail expansion in 25 U.S. cities.
When I see a company that looks like a good investment, I check it out myself.
We make it easier to follow your own lead.
At Charles Schwab, I can get quotes, financial news, and when I make a trade, commission savings.
Always there to give you just the help you need.
Help yourself at Schwab today.
Gifted Hands, the gallery on the park, downtown Ames.
What could 2020 have found out about this POW hunter to make him this angry? Watch 2020 and find out Friday.
So, Senator Danforth, as you know, but let me just state it publicly for everybody else's benefit, I went to my bosses at ABC, took your proposal to them, and in principle they have agreed. We don't yet know precisely when, we don't yet know precisely what time of day or what order, but in principle ABC has agreed to provide those 3 hours of network time. But when the phone rings, as it probably will, if not immediately after this program, then sometime early tomorrow morning, and someone at the White House says to you or one of the other Republicans on this panel, Jack, have you lost your marbles? Are you trying to kill us? Are we talking here? You know, you want the president to go on the air and talk about cutting entitlements and raising taxes? What are you going to say?
I'm going to say, why be president unless you can deal with the really important issues before the country, and there is no more important issue than this. We have to deal with it. The word that's been used by Senator Levin and Senator Graham has been the word mandate. The American people have to be given an opportunity to address this issue. Maybe what they will end up saying is, eat, drink, and be merry. Let our children worry about it. But they at least have to be given the question. And that means there has to be a format in this election which clears out the underbrush. The underbrush is to pick out some little specific things that everybody would agree are ridiculous, or to say we can cut out waste, that's going to solve the problem, when it is not going to solve the problem. The 6 senators here, and I'm sure the 3 presidential candidates, will disagree on precisely what to do about the budget deficit, but unless they include either capping the entitlement programs or increasing taxes or some combination of the two, they are not going to create anything but increasing bankruptcy for this country. And the tough questions that would be asked by Senators Rudman and Conrad would smoke that out. They would not be able to get away in a 1-hour program with platitudes. They would not be able to get away with evasiveness. They would not be able to get away with poppycock, such as let's just cut out waste, as though that's some isolated pot of money somewhere.
Senator Nunn, how much hope do you have that even an hour and an hour and an hour, one for each of the candidates with the toughest kind of questioning, is going to produce the kind of outline for programs that will resolve what is clearly one of the most complex and most trying problems confronting the nation?
Ted, if you carry out this, and I know you're committed to it, if the candidates agree, I think it'll be a great education for the American people. And I suggest the first thing that be done as a prelude to each program is that you put a pie up there and you show people where the money is going. Because most people think you pick out one program and cut that out if they think there's waste in it. Liberals think it's defense, conservatives think it's food stamps, and then everything goes away. Jack Danforth is exactly right, and Pete Domenici is right. You've got to curb the growth rate of entitlement programs. But people do not understand that, and the reason they don't is because we don't have thorough media coverage on this, and politicians are not held accountable. Politicians today know that the way you get elected is to promise tax cuts and service increases and also make general statements about how bad the deficit is. Until politicians are held accountable by the American people, nothing's going to change, and that cannot happen until we have thorough media coverage on this, and I hope this is a breakthrough.
Let me just, and my apologies to the rest of you, Senator Danforth is the man I've been dealing with, so I have more of a sense of what is also going on behind the scenes from him. In the 50 or so seconds that we have left, Senator, are there any more out there like you? Can we look to the U.S. Senate to provide any more leadership, or is this half dozen all we're going to get?
No, they're going to be more than this. In fact, tomorrow, Senator Bob Graham is having a press conference. Some of us are going to be there. Some other senators are going to be there. There is a growing consensus, bipartisan, in the United States Senate, and I'm sure in the House as well, that we have to do something about the federal budget deficit. And we cannot let the candidates slip this issue yet again. If they slip the issue, if we go into 1993 without some clear statement of what we're going to do about it, we are just going to continue to dig ourselves into the same hole.
Senator, on that note, let me, forgive me, we are flat out of time, and if this network's going to give another 3 hours, I hope you'll be understanding with me today. Thank you very much, all of you. It's been refreshing hearing you. Let us hope that it leads on to great things. I'll be back in a moment.
Recycling's easy if you got the right stuff and you know what to do. So don't make a mess. Just ask Ace.
Ace Harmony trash bags are just $1.97, and Ace siliconized acrylic caulk is 88 cents a tube.
Ace Best Buy is another reason Ace is a place for you.
A car is a car. It won't make you handsome or prettier or younger, and if it improves your standing with the neighbors, then you live among snobs. A car is steel, electronics, rubber, plastic, and glass. A machine. And in the end, may the best machine win. Subaru, what to drive.
Each year, corporate America spends over $10 billion on overnight shipping. Yet according to a report in the Wall Street Journal, $3 billion of that is wasted. If you find that kind of inefficiency alarming, call UPS. We can save you up to 40% on overnight deliveries and help prevent your profits from going up in smoke. UPS. We run the tightest ship in the shipping business.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day fun ship vacation to the Bahamas, Caribbean, or Mexican Riviera on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Every time the Grand Prix comes to town, you dream about being a race car driver. Just because you're not a race car driver doesn't mean you can't have fun while you're driving. That's why your Ford dealers are having their Grand Prix of savings with the best deals of the year, like the top Ford F-150. Grand Prix priced at just $10,877. That's less than $10,900 for America's favorite full-size truck 15 years running. But at this price, they're really moving fast. So stop dreaming and have some fun. The starting line is at your Ford dealer.
On the next Good Morning America, are you a victim of the fastest-growing telemarketing scams? Then we'll have the announcement of the winner of the Elvis Presley stamp vote here on Good Morning America.
Today, the Ross Perot campaign machine got two very big and powerful political wheels. Democrat Hamilton Jordan, who was Jimmy Carter's campaign manager and chief of staff, and Republican Ed Rollins, who helped Ronald Reagan to the White House. Tomorrow on Nightline, both men will join us. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Los Angeles. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Thursday, an old flame
Hello, Buck.
ignites a tribal war.
Your friend is in great danger.
The Young Riders. Then, Max in a race against time to find a mad bomber out for revenge. Go! Once again, it's a classic MacGyver. It's a double dose of danger and desperados Thursday.
Fair overnight, mild also with temperatures in the 50s.